Hey, it's the Mad Master here. I'm just doing a quick video. Um, Now, what I'm about to say is probably controversial to those who are, who watch my regular virus content. Of course, I'm not fully on board with any side in some ways, but obviously I'm skeptical of lockdowns and telling people what to do in their own home, of course, and to some extent, even masks to a certain extent too. Um, Now, one thing that is probably different than me between me and other people that are skeptical about a lot of the narratives that are going on or question a lot of the things that go on with this whole thing, this whole crisis, as I have from the beginning, by the way, is that I do believe that, for one, Michael Mina of Harvard, his ideas about cheap, rapid home testing. He just did another thing on MedCram, I think today or yesterday. This is something I agree with implementing. I think instead of spending all this time building these drive-through testing places and making this kind of a hoop to jump through to get tested, having cheap home-based tests, and there is a home kit, but he criticized that because it's more like a fucking it's almost like a diabetes home kit thing. You have to put this thing, and he's talking about these test strips that have some actually a pretty high reliability, at least on the same level as PCR, or better as far as I know. I'm just going to talk about the philosophical implications of this idea, as well as why I am in support of it. Now, for one, I've talked about this before, but for one, I think that democratizing some of the elements in this crisis. No, that's on my phone. Thought I saw some gunk. It's actually on my phone. That's gross. On my shirt, but it's on my phone. Democratizing some of the things in this crisis. For example, testing is a good thing because you have big pharma, you have the people that are pushing the vaccines, pushing all these treatments and stuff of competing companies some of the time, and they're probably going to be, and then there's the powers that be, the establishment, are censoring people and telling people not to say this or that, but this takes it out of the hands of the medical establishment. It puts the impetus upon the individual to get themselves tested. You don't have to go to a drive-through. You don't have to buy an expensive kit to bring home. And you could use these multiple strips. I mean, mass manufacturing those is a great idea. He's talking about asking Elon Musk to do it. I hope he does. I would like to have it, just because, as he said, I think he said that if we actually had these kits, a bunch of test strips that you can just literally spit on a piece of paper, and it's a C virus test. And if we all had these, I think that things would go a lot smoother in our society because we'd have control over our health. We'd be able to make the best judgments for ourselves, and we'd be able to make the best decisions. So it would probably save so much uncertainty too. Doing these rapid test strips, having these on a mass scale. You can just go to Walgreens and get like a pack of 20 for $30 or something, or less than that. And I'm not saying the virus will go away after that, but a lot of these narratives that we, even from the conspiracy side, let's say this takes it out of their hands. This takes it out of their hands. Obviously, there's a product to be sold. It could say that, but this takes things out of their hands. It's like, I have control over my health. I'm going to make the best decisions for my health and my life. So I test positive. I'm going to, I'll quarantine, but nobody else has to knock down my door or tell me I'm doing something evil by doing this or doing that, or not doing this or not doing that. It takes it out of the public arena of this contentious bullshit that we've put up with for the last, 8 or 9, 10 months or so. And philosophically, I guess I would call it almost more of a libertarian response to the crisis. It's like, anybody that buys one of these kits, if they do become available, not the current home testing kit, which I guess it has to be prescription. Anybody who buys these kits is probably going to be taken seriously. Why would they buy the kit? And I'm sure there's some people who believe in some QAnon nonsense that wouldn't, would rather. I mean, there are people that are irresponsible in this crisis. It's true, but I don't believe. I mean, it depends on what you mean. If they're actually sick and going places, I think that's, there are people that probably do that. That's what I mean by irresponsible. So there's a lot of stuff I don't really get about I'm still confused about asymptomatic spread and how prevalent it is. But I could do a separate video about that. But yeah, I think these home testing kits, cheap home rapid testing kits should become available. And ironically, of course, broken clock is right twice a day, as they say. Well, I don't know. I'm not sure. But Mr. Fauci himself, on a interview, actually came out in support of it to some extent. Now, does that mean he's like? I mean, he also came out. Let's just keep things in perspective. A few months ago, he was also, in support of the T-cell immunity studies to some extent. He's not. What I'm trying to say is not always going to say some bullshit to fit the, if you believe in the conspiracy narrative, he's not 100%, aligned with. Not every statement he says is part of that, can be perceived as part of that narrative if you believe in that narrative. For example, this one, because it frees things from the medical establishment and big pharma and puts it in the hands of the citizen. And if you want to be responsible for your own health, I think this is the way to go. It's like a pregnancy test at Walgreens. You could buy one, the test strip says false, negative, whatever, or false, or not false, it says positive or negative, and whatever. And you have this pack of 20 or 30 test strips that come in the pack. Maybe one of them's negative, so you spit on another one the next day and it's positive, and you're like, I don't know, 2 out of 3 are positive, so you're like, okay, I'm probably have this, and I'll stay home for a week and a half or whatever, 2 weeks or whatever, from going places. It's instead of making this, I think it makes it less of a big deal in a way, because the whole thing's dramatized and catastrophized because it's this big deal. You have to, oh my God, blah, 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 You have to go drive to this drive-through thing where someone sticks a fucking huge thing up your nose. I haven't been tested, by the way. I already gave my position on, the actual tests. But instead of that, you can, in the privacy of your own home, you can know whether or not you have the virus and make a decision, informed, intelligent decision from there. And it's not like, I just think it frees also, if you believe in the conspiracy narratives, it frees us from some of that in a way, because it's like, there's no microchip on a piece of paper, unless they get really good at nanotechnology. I'm not going to go into that. You can't really put like these rapid tests, rapidly produced rapid strip tests would not have some type of tracking thing or some shit like, and you could say that about, I mean, just from the conspiracy narrative, or some of the more skeptical narrative, I think there's no doubt that I think this is a good move if they do this, because it kind of pleases both camps too, in a way. It kind of pleases all sides. It's a good compromise between, as Mina has said. He said this is better than lockdowns in a way. Like, this is better than a vaccine. Like, he actually believes that. I don't know. He's actually made statements that show that he believes that. I don't know if that's his complete narrative on this, but it's just it's an idea that I think is long overdue. And also, I could see this kind of being a future thing for a lot of other stuff, like, because big pharma and the medical establishment, including the vaccine pushers, they really want to have control over, people, and these politicians having control over people's lives. And if you can reduce the rates of transmission by being able to like mind your own business and not have the government or corporations, trying to tell you what to do or what not to do, but you're doing it on your, you're doing it on your own time when you want to do, when you want to, as far as like, not, I mean, as far as getting tested, like, you don't have to go to this huge drive-through thing, and it's been horrible. And that's kind of used to further the crisis too. If and for people that aren't at risk too, think about it this way: having these home tests, having these rapid home strip tests, will help the people that really aren't at risk mitigate things in a way that they normally wouldn't have been able to. Like, for example, so let's say you test positive and you have like a 79-year-old mother, and she has some pre-existing conditions, but this sounds weird, but like, you have a bubble of friends or whatever. You're like, oh yeah, I'm positive. Making this decision, I mean, even if you, like, let's say you told your friend that you were positive and they didn't really care, or they had already had it or something, you can make that informed decision instead of like this kind of like haphazard, like shooting darts at a dartboard, blindfolded kind of thing. Like, well, I'll hang out with this person because they're less at risk, or they've already had it or whatever. I mean, I'm not saying people should hang out with people when they have it. I'm just saying, like, asymptomatic, but you think you've been exposed, you spit on this rapid test, you get test positive, you quarantine or whatever, you're controlling your own life, you have this decision that you're making, not your employer or your fucking government. And that appeals to me way more. It's personal liberty, what you're doing in your own damn home, what you're trying to do in your life. And I think Mina makes such great points about this. I don't know, he's a little hyperbolic about it. He's like, well, the virus would just go away. Like, if we all had this, so, he gets a little hyperbolic, but at the same time, I mean, having this available would probably fucking help. So, and I don't know if they're going to do it. If they did, I'd be like, yeah, I'd be all totally on board. I'm sorry. As much as I hate all this shit, I'd be on board with that. That's my what's the word called? I forgot the word, but that's my part in, that's my agreement with the side of the people that believe this fight in the more alarmist narrative, is that, at least in part, I believe in testing, but I believe in this type of testing more than anything, because it brings control back to the citizen. That's the irony, that maybe Fauci's just like telling the truth because he knows. I mean, I think he's gonna be retained, but I'm not completely sure. But maybe he's just like, I'll just tell the truth about this. I don't know. I'm skeptical of Fauci for many different reasons. He'll say one thing that's actually really good, like with the T-cell immunity, like with this, and then the next month he'll say something else. I'm like, no, I didn't mean that. I was really for rapid tests. He could backtrack on this, because he backtracks on basically everything. But this one thing, if he doesn't, then I do agree with him on this. Now, Michael Mina also says, I think there was an interview on MedCram where he's actually almost like not criticizing the vax thing, but like, he's like, yeah, well, the vaccine thing, but this is, this idea, like, he thinks this is a better idea for right now, because I think as far as what I know, he's pretty against lockdowns and all this stuff. I mean, he knows that this shit is fucked up, Anybody that is trying to do something like that, I mean, yeah, you could convince 80 million people to not care about the virus and just go out and be like Sweden was, because I think they had more restrictions now. You can try to convince them, but you're not going to convince them. You're not going to convince them. So this is kind of a not an olive branch, but it's just like it would be my olive branch to the skeptics and the conspiracy crowd with regards to this. Because there's really no conspiracy. Why would there, having a rapid strip test in your home, it's actually almost like, I hate to say this, but like, it's almost like goes against the wishes of the Great Reset or New World Order, because they all want to track you and shit, and they all want to like have you registered and all this shit, but having your fucking, I mean, they would try it anyways, even with this, but like, I'm just saying, like, at least in principle, it's kind of against those ideas. If you really think about it, it's like having what are they called? What people that give birth, midwives or something, instead of going to the hospital. Or you're not buying into the fucking system. I'm not supporting like at home births or something by saying that. I'm just saying you're bowing, you're contributing to the system in a certain way, but you're also bowing out, or vowing out, or whatever the fuck the word it would be. So I'm in support of this. I hope he gets the funding he needs. I would actually buy a kit myself. Honestly, I would. Just because, I don't want to contribute to the testing thing in a public way, because I don't want to be part of these totals and the statistics and all this fucking thing. The technocrats, this is almost, and people can disagree with me, that's fine. This is almost like, well, you think you can get us these technocrats? Well, I can do this myself, so fuck you, it's like almost a slap in the face of the technocrats in a way. It's like they want you to have these apps and fucking take your temperature and all this shit. Well, how about at-home rapid test kits, reduce the fucking case transmission, maybe, if it's accurate, if you believe in the virus exists, reduce it so much that people took responsibility for their own health by buying these test kits that are super cheap at Walgreens. They stayed home for a week if they had the virus, or 2 weeks or whatever. And then they fucking go on with life, and we can go on and get to the normal, not new normal, that we've wanted to live these past 10 months. But we couldn't, because everything got fucked. But, yeah, that's my basic spiel. I mean, I'm trying to think of more examples and more philosophical allegories or metaphors about why I support this initiative. It's not really an initiative, but I do support it. I'm sorry, not to disappoint anybody that is watching my channel that likes, my COVID, there I said the word, COVID skeptic videos, but this is one thing that I think is like it's like this wrench in the system, but it's like, I don't know, it's hard to explain. Like, I could see how could be like, this is just like, they're not going to go for it because they don't want to acknowledge that they were wrong about a lot of stuff. And they're not going to about setting up this surveillance and like this system of statistics and all this shit. You know what I mean? Like they want to fucking keep these politicians and stuff. Okay, I'm going to ramble a little bit. I'm sorry. They want to keep, I'm sure subconsciously at least, some of these people want to keep this shit up. Oh, the cases are going up, blah, blah, blah. Unconsciously. If I'll give it that. I'm not going to say they're all in on this fucking big, great reset conspiracy necessarily. But they wanted to keep going. So here's this little wrench that could be thrown in there. And it's like the people that are actually for this, other than Fauci, because he's part of the whole fucking thing, obviously, that are in support of this, I don't know what Fauci's motivations are at this point. I'm deeply confused by the interview, but honestly now. But as I've been from the start, he says a lot of contradictory shit all the time. So I don't even know what the fuck is sowing discord on purpose or whatever. I don't know. But anyways, barring Fauci, the people that want to do this are from the establishment, some of them, like Michael Mina. But they also want, like Mina has, that interview, he said it best. He's like, He's like, I mean, he's down on the idea of I mean, he's not down on the idea of the vaccine, but he's basically his attitude is like this: fuck the vaccine. It's gonna take too long. Let's get fucking things back to normal. We got this fucking cheap ass thing I could throw out there, and people naively he thinks people are gonna follow it to the T, but I don't believe that. But at the same time, it's like this thing we can do right fucking now, and get back to normal, not new normal. I mean, I don't think I'll read some more interviews with him. I don't think he likes that word new normal, as far as I know. It's like, fuck this shit. He's part of the establishment. He's part of the big pharma, military, medical, industrial complex, all that shit. Harvard University guy, but God damn, it makes so much sense to me. And that's all.